Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Dalles Chamber of Community Affairs. Today, our guest is Rodger Nichols. Most of us know him, and lots of different hats have been worn by him. And today, though, he's wearing his Gorge Commission hat and giving us some updates and different things that's going on. And basically, it's rebuilding and recovery for both fires we had on Washington side and Oregon side. So we'll be discussing that today. But until then, what's going to go around the room, and we're going to start with my upper left. Julie, could you please introduce yourself?
Good morning, Julie Reynolds. I volunteer with Fort Dalles. I'm on the Fort Dalles Museum Commission and the Historic St. Paul's Chapel Planning Committee, and I don't have anything to report this week.
Great, thank you. Are you okay, Trish? Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, there you go.
I'm Trish Neal. I'm with Legal Shield for 18 years. I'm former the Dalles resident. I'm a staunch member of the Dalles Chamber of Commerce, and I'll drop my information in the chat.
Perfect. Thank you. Jacob.
Good morning. This is Jacob Anderson, Economic Development Officer for the City of the Dalles. Looking forward to Rodger's presentation.
Great. Thank you. Dave Peters, just as you took a drink of coffee. Sorry.
Great timing. Yeah, Dave Peters, Columbia Cascade Housing, Midland Housing Authority. Karen gave a pretty thorough update last week, so nothing new to report. No, I've not heard of anything. We've still not been notified of the Washington grants. We have a grant for enough to get the Carson Project 14 Homes Community Land Trust started, and I think we asked for $2 million in down payment funding, so we're still waiting on those. It should be this month, but they've often put it off, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's early January.
Okay, great. Thank you, Dave. Mike Wacker.
Good morning. I'm Kiwanian on their board. We're going to be doing backpack program today. And also I'm involved with Fort Dalles Museum, and we will reopen after the holidays on only Friday, Saturday, Sundays from 11 to 4. So if you have a guest or something, bring them up to the museum.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bill Lennox.
Good morning, everyone. I'm with the St. Paul's Chapel Historic Chapel Committee, and I have good news because I am also on the board of Six Rivers Dispute Resolution. And as of January, Six Rivers is going to be using some of the office space at the St. Paul's Chapel for an office for a wonderful program that they've just been funded to operate. So that's exciting news. I'm also with the North Central Public Health District, along with, of course, Commissioner Brady. And I'm looking forward to today's presentation. Thanks.
Thank you. Right into that, Phil Brady.
Good morning, Phil Brady, Wasco County Commissioner. At our commission meeting yesterday, we dealt with the cleanup at Rowena. We've signed a contract with Crestline to do the cleanup. There was some protests to that by other parties who didn't have standing, so we did not deny their protests. We've been following the correct procedure, and we want to get this work done.
Okay, great. Thank you. Corliss, do you have signal?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. It's going off and on, so just say hi.
Okay, great. Thank you. Dan Richardson.
Good morning, Dan Richardson, City of the Dalles. Much going on. It was a busy day in many ways at the city yesterday, but I don't feel like there's anything I can necessarily report. Just, I would say, be confident that your staff is doing its best to keep things moving forward for our community.
Thank you. Hank Sanders.
Hi there, Hank, from Hood River, community member. Just excited to listen and learn.
All right, great. Thank you. Jill Amory.
I might be having a little bit of issue too. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you, ma'am.
Good morning, Jill, and I apologize. I'm working at home this morning. Jill Amory, your assessor and tax collector for Wasco County. We are still working on and doing what we call cleanup after an active tax season. So things are going really well. Also coming at this topic this morning from a personal perspective, I am a resident and was impacted by the Rowena fire.
All right. Thank you, Jill, for being here. Yvonne, you still here? Oh, there she is. Yvonne, you want to introduce yourself? And you're on mute. We want to hear you. We are so there with you. And you're still on mute, but this is Yvonne. You'll get it. There you go.
Yeah, I'm Yvonne Pippin Wakefield. I live down at the port. I'm just interested in what's going on.
Okay, great. Thank you for being here and taking time. Did I miss anybody? I think I got everybody.
Almost, Lisa. Dan Spot's listening in from Chicago. Lisa, thank
Hey.
you very much for hosting this morning.
Now I know who Daniel's iPad is. All right. Nice to see you. Hopefully you're doing great over there. All right. So with that, I'm going to let our guest speaker take over at this point. So Rodger, are you ready? And I will start sharing the screen and hopefully this will all work. Can you guys all see it?
Coming in here, Lisa.
Okay. All right, Rodger, it is all you.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for showing up so early this morning. I have a general introduction before we start the slideshow. We're going to be seeing this slide for a while. It's one that I took when the Gorge Commission, 9 of the 13 members on the Gorge Commission took a bus tour of the affected area. That was in, I believe, the 30th of June. So this is very closely after all of this took place. And just for those who may not know me, I have been in radio and newspapers locally for more than 50 years, and I've been interested in the controversy surrounding the Gorge Commission since the very beginning. In fact, one of the things I have in my possession is that I testified at a hearing for the Committee on Energy and Natural Resources of the United States Senate, which was held by one senator, Senator Dan Evans, in Stevenson back in November of 1984. I started covering the commission for the Dallas Chronicle in 2003. The first meeting I attended was when Don Dunn was stepping down from representing Wasco County on the commission. I covered it continually until 2010 when I was hired away to be the news director at Y102 and KLCK. And then the following year, I was elected by the county commissioners as Wasco County's representative on the commission. That would be in 2011, served 3 4-year terms ending in 2023. And then this spring, the woman who replaced me as Wasco County's representative quit very suddenly, and the commissioners asked me to resume representing the county till they could select a permanent replacement. So I came on board just a couple of months before the Rowena fire here and the Burgoyne fire in Klickitat County. And I want to really single out somebody. That is Kelly Housley Glover, the Wasco County Community Development Director. She dived into the management plan rules for rebuilding in the scenic area following a disaster and found them hopelessly outdated and overstringent. And she reached out to the Gorge Commission staff, who I'm delighted to hear worked closely with her, agreed with her that it was time to make changes. Well, that means a change in the management plan. And changing the management plan is a big deal. Under normal conditions, the bi-state compact authorized by the National Scenic Area requires the commission to update the plan at least every 10 years, but no sooner than 5 years, unless conditions sufficiently change. With climate change and fires coming larger and more often, all sides, everyone agrees conditions have changed. So a quick rundown on the background before we get to what we're doing today, and that is that due to budget cuts by the Washington legislature, which had to be matched by Oregon, the commission had to reduce the number of meetings from monthly to every other month. Now, as it happened, the Rowena fire started on June 11th and the Burgoyne fire the next week. There was some mention of them at the July meeting, but nothing was proposed. Excuse me. There was no meeting in August. By the September meeting, the enormity of the losses in both fires had sunk in to the point the commission itself voted unanimously to start the process of changing the management plan to make it much more easier for folks to rebuild. The publication of the draft language took place later the month of September. The public had 30 days to comment on the draft language. They got feedback from that process. They took it into consideration. And the final wording was posted on the website October 28th, 2 weeks before the November meeting, and where they were discussed in depth. Well, at that meeting, 2 of the 4 treaty tribes, there are 4 tribes that we are obligated to consult with by the conditions of the Bi-State Compact. 2 of the tribes said they needed more time to comment on the final language as well. And though some of us who represent counties affected by the fire objected, commissioners extended the comment deadline to December 5th and added a special session of the commission on December 16th, the day before yesterday. It was a 4-hour meeting, one topic, lots of back and forth, but the ultimate result was the vote was delayed yet again, the January 13th commission meeting. Now, the way it stands right now, the motion has been made to grant all of these changes, been seconded. It's awaiting a vote. Discussion is continuing, and the public record will remain open for more comment. So it didn't pass, but it didn't get voted down. So now we can take a look at what changes were on the line. So if we could go to the next slide, please. This is the Burgoyne, picture of the Burgoyne fire, which is pretty nasty as well. That's the remains of a mobile home near White Salmon. Both fires resulted in the largest number of homes and outbuildings lost in the gorge since the National Scenic Area was created in 1986. Now, there were larger fires, like the Eagle Creek fire that started in 2017, which burned nearly 50,000 acres, but only 1 home and 3 vacation homes were lost. By comparison, the nearly 11,000 acre Burgoyne fire, at 1/5 the size of Eagle Creek, destroyed 19 homes, more than 30 other structures, and damaged dozens more. The 3,700 acre Rowena fire, at 1/5 the size of the Burgoyne fire, destroyed 56 homes, 91 other structures, and injured more. Now, if it all works right, the next slide has a short video, it's just over 90 seconds, that I took out the window of the bus in which we made the tour. Let's hope this thing plays.
Hang on just a second, because I think you have to do something for the sound. Is there sound?
Yeah. No, yes, go ahead.
Okay. Is that coming through? The sound?
No, that it doesn't really need the sound.
Okay. It's on my computer. Okay.
Yeah.
Oops.
It's taken out the bus's window. That's why you can see the reflection there. Sorry about that. Again, this is Thule Terrace, just turned off onto it.
Reminiscent of Paradise, California fire.
Yeah, it really did. Okay. Yeah, and there's one more little short piece here. Just doing a pan around the first area that we looked at. Okay, that's it. If we can go on to the next slide, please. Okay, this presentation that I'm showing you now is taken from a presentation that Gorge Attorney Jeff Litwack made to the commission at the November meeting, saying, okay, here's what we're going to be doing. And let me advance my cheat sheet here so that I can read that. What has happened since that meeting, obviously, is that, and this is the one that he prepared to us, we had done all of those things, including reaching out to the tribal councils and started the public comment and got proposed plan judgment, all of that stuff. And then the tribes asked, they want to make sure they had a second 30 days to review the final proposed text. There was a very long discussion about that. And finally, the people said, we have to do that. So we have an obligation. So if we move on to the next, this one will be here for a while. We'll talk about some of the guidelines. I never did find out what guideline 1 was that he put up there. Apparently it's something that didn't need to be changed, but that's the map to the changes they're proposing. Guideline 2 doesn't really involve replacements, but some of the text that they were using followed a disaster, made them go back and look and clean up a couple of items in that. Those are pretty minor. Guideline 3, some pretty significant revisions to the standards for replacing a structure that's been destroyed. Essentially allows for replacements to go through to expedited review process if they're the same size, same location, same height. But we'll talk more about that in a bit. Guideline 4 is brand new, would allow temporary use of recreational vehicles in the temporary placement of structures, non-residential structures, for example, for storage. Guideline 5 talks about what happens if you have a use that's non-residential. If it's a home occupation, does it become discontinued because the structure's gone? And the answer is no, but there are a few exceptions. And then guideline 6, a new proposal, allows extended use of campground spaces. You can understand people might need access to infrastructure, wastewater, electricity, etc. That may be a good alternative if folks want to stay there for an extended amount of time. You're probably aware that the full commission building permits involve a lot more paperwork, take longer, and are much more expensive. And one of those requirements includes hiring an archaeologist to determine if there are any cultural resources on the property, whether tribal or pioneer. And that can be very expensive, and it can take anywhere from 3 months to 18 months, depending on the property. An expedited review does not eliminate some of the requirements, but it does eliminate that particular one. Okay, next, if we would, some of the examples. For expedited review, for replacement in the same location, they have to be the same size, same front pit, same height. But the new guidelines give you a little more flexibility. One of them is you can, right now, landowners only have 2 years to start rebuilding if they want expedited review. This will change that to 10 years. Color reflectivity and landscaping standards won't change, but yes, you can have a metal roof, but just can't be shiny. And counties will be able to take defensible space into consideration when they do the landscaping evaluation. So this is an illustration of guideline 3D, which says it has to be in the same location as the footprint. And the red dots are the estimation of the center of the footprint, but it also allows that the orientation can be shifted up to 10 degrees. So this illustrates a 10-degree shift in the orientation of a structure. Both are still centered on the center point. And the next example, the next slide, shows a couple of examples of where they're not centered. Both of those would be rejected because they were way more than 10% over. And they would be considered a different location. Now, they could still apply for a permit, but they would have to go through the full Gorge Commission non-expedited review in that case. And on the next one, you will see that both of them are within the 10% exemption for the original footprint. You can see it's not a whole lot, but it could be helpful in certain cases. And the next one shows different cases. The shape's a little different in the upper one, but it overhangs no more than 10% of the original footprint, so it'll be permitted. The second one clearly over more than 10%, and that would not be permitted. So the next gets into wall height. Now, this example of how different heights might occur in a replacement. So you can see the grayed area at the bottom of the example represents the foundation, and there may be new codes that require greater separation between the ground and the bottom plate, the sill. So there may be some extra inches there. And at the top, there may be new standards for wall height. So you can see how a building get a little bit taller just through complying with current building codes. That is something that is permitted. And the next, we talk about overall height needs to be the same. So this example, the pitched roof would be need to lower the pitch in order to make the same height. The standard says the same type of roof needs to be used, just to be needs at a lower pitch. There's going to be some interpretation and unique applications of this for like flat roofs and such. And the next is an example of a roof type that's different. The dashed lines represent the original roof, which would have been a hip roof. The solid lines are the gable, and gable roofs are different, so this would not be permitted even though it is the same overall height. And that's the quick tour of that. The next one goes on to guideline 4, which allows temporary use of a recreational vehicle. Each parcel is entitled to one recreational vehicle on a temporary basis. So we're not going to see more than one per parcel, the whole field, although also permitting temporary structures with no foundation or grading. In other words, you're not disturbing the land at all, and limited to 320 square feet. That was picked because that's the size of a 40-foot shipping container. They would need to be a darker tone as well, and it wouldn't have to be a shipping container as long as it was just 320 square feet. But that's one that's very popular, and it seemed like a good standard to use. And the next slide shows non-residential uses. Most home occupations would not be considered to be discontinued just because the structure where it was occurring is gone. We just thought of as inactive. There are 4 exceptions that are unique to the management plan. The first 2 bullet points, special uses in historic buildings and the bed and breakfast inns in the special management area, which is the more restrictive portion of the gorge. And they can only occur in historic building, and if historic building goes down, that's it for that. The second 2 bullets, overnight accommodations, commercial events, they're already approved only for a limited period of time. Then the landowner needs to come back for a new approval. The thought there is that folks can rebuild the structures when those were occurring within the period during which their permit is still valid. They can continue to do that. So say a landowner is 6 months into a 2-year permit for commercial events. The structure is destroyed. They rebuild the structure after 6 months. They still have a year left to continue hosting commercial events before they have to apply for a new permit. But if it took more than that time, they'd have to reapply for the permit. So those are the exceptions to that. And finally, the occupancy of an existing campground space while rebuilding. Some folks may want to try to live on their property in RV, and some folks say, I don't want to deal with that. I got to have running water, bathrooms and such, electricity. So it allows them to stay in extended use of a campground space. So that is the slide presentation, and I am available for questions of any kind.
Roger, Mike Wacker here. Were there commercial buildings in Rowena?
Not that I know. Well, not openly commercial buildings, but there may have been home occupations. People might have been a seamstress working out of their, or a mechanic working out of their garage wouldn't be, but there are home occupations that are allowed. I'm coming a blank on what they might be at the moment, but things that you might be able to do at home that is a business, but it's not where people come to your door and buy things.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
This is Phil Brady. I know McCack has found new housing, I believe for 20 or 22 former residents of Rowena. And several of them came from from rental units, and it seems like a small little subdivision. Do you know is that status just going to, or is the owners of those rental properties rebuilding?
We don't know yet. So far, Wasco County has approved, I think, one home and have several other permits going. And I want to make a distinction here in that when we had the hearing, the Friends of the Gorge put not one, not two, not three, but four people to testify. And I'm going to be a little political here, but I'm speaking only for myself, not necessarily Wasco County. But I actually spoke up at the meeting and said, this is kind of a surprise to see them trying to flood the zone, which is a tactic being used a lot these days to try to control the narrative. And that was a bit disturbing to me because they were saying, we generally agree, but we want to make you all these changes, which of course would push it back farther and farther. The goal is try to get everybody help as quickly as possible. And they said, well, some people are already rebuilding, so what's the problem? Well, the distinction is those are the people with money who can hire things done. A lot of the people who are living, particularly in the Thule Terrace part, were people who were living in mobile homes that were sometimes predating the Gorge Commission establishment. And sometimes there were people who had paid off their homes and were no longer required by the mortgage holder to keep homeowner insurance. And they're in a real fix. So I kind of discounted that. Again, we have to honor the tribes, but there's a frustration on the part because at least one and several of the people who are on the commission say the tribe's consultation is over only when the tribe says it's over, which gives them a giant veto over situations like this.
Yeah.
So Roger, Mike Wacker again. The tribes, do they give specific reasons they want to?
Oh yeah, I think.
Or is it just they just think they need more time to?
Yeah, the most specific. They're concerned most primarily about disturbing the ground where there might be cultural relics. There are cultural resources, as we put it. This is. I guess the thing, and I didn't say this at the meeting, but one of the things that occurs to me is I don't think that's as much of a problem as they think it is, because if you start to disturb the ground and you discover that there are cultural resources there, you're required under both federal and state law to immediately stop construction and report that. So if their disturbance finds nothing, no harm, no foul. The disturbance finds something, they have to stop. The resource is preserved. So I guess I'm less excited about that than others. There was an attempt. We actually had some discussion among a couple of us commissioners who, well, particularly Valerie Fowler from Plickatack County and Laura Brennan Bissell from Skamania County, counties that have had fires where homes were lost, thought perhaps maybe there was some concurrence. Some of the people were saying, well, maybe we could just do a few of those things that will help people immediately. And we thought we had some support for that, but there was not enough to pass that either. And we also thought that if we gave a couple of the things like being able to stay on the property and have a container and have 10 years to qualify for expedited review, that we might be able to get it through in time to do some real good. But we also realized if we did that, the other part would never ever come up again. So right now we're preserving, trying to get all this stuff through. We have to go through, and I don't know if the tribes haven't concurred by the January meeting. Some of us will be very, very upset about that. So that will be a real barn burner if that happens. And then when it does happen, the process is a long one that still has to go to the Secretary of Agriculture for concurrence. Secretary concurs, then each of the counties have to pass their own moderation upgrades to their land use ordinance that parallels that, and they have a process that takes time. So it's going to be months and months anyway. It's going to be in the late spring, early summer at the very best before people can rebuild. And unfortunately, people who rebuild now are under the old things, all the restrictions, and they can't do all of the other stuff. So,
Bill, you have a question?
Yeah, let me come back and talk about the tribes from another perspective. I'm not an expert on this, but I'm seeing this issue come up, and so I'm taking a part of the tribes, but I might not do a good job. The same issue of cultural artifacts is happening on land that's being proposed for renewable energy. And here we're looking at 5,000, 10,000 acres of land that is asked to be assessed for archaeological, cultural relics. The tribes do not have the capacity to request to respond to that in a timely manner. Rowena is a smaller section, I know, but when we ask the tribes to do this quickly, they say, "Wow, we're overstretched." So I'm also I'm also think like, yeah, hey, this is a small piece of land. The houses are already there. It's a different case. I'm going to close that question unless somebody wants to come back to it. But I want to bring up another idea that these are changes to the gorge rules, and they're going to be applied everywhere, if I'm correct. So I'm wondering if, the Gorge Commission has been thinking about it, has it thinking been Rowena specific and then it's going to be applied everywhere, or are they thinking about it everywhere and then seeing, okay, how well this applies to Rowena?
Oh, they have to. There's no way they can make it specific. It has to apply throughout the whole gorge. And I think the fact that the Friends of the Gorge, who are probably the strongest in terms of being watchdog group and making sure that we adhere to the original purposes of the act, they say, yes, there's no question that the situation has changed because of climate change, because the fires are becoming hotter and more frequency and larger. And if they don't object to that aspect of it, then they're doing so the details they're looking at. So yeah, it's going to apply everywhere.
Dan, you have a question?
Thank you, Roger. Thank you. Very, very informative presentation. You had mentioned on the archaeology side, you had mentioned pioneer as well as Native American. That got my attention. In addition, thinking of ramifications there, so many of these, Rowena goes back, 19th century easily. What's the definition of pioneer here?
I believe, I'm not a legal expert, but my understanding is it's somewhere between 75 years. When there was a case that we dealt with when I was still on the commission the first time, having to do with an inn that was built actually above where you could look down on Crown Point on the old highway back in the 20s. And it was an actual inn with bedrooms and a big dining room and whatnot. It had been used as a private residence for many years. And when the act was put in, those places on the National Historic Register were allowed to continue. And for some reason, they missed that particular because it was no longer a hotel or an inn. And people bought it and wanted to restore it as an inn. And we said we can't spot zone, but we will go through and do a thing where any structure, I believe at that time we said that qualified for the National Register of Historic Places, was allowed to return to its original use. And it's so much as actually having some minor, how shall I put it, some minor commercial activities, maybe a little gift shop, or that would help support keeping the place as its historic use. And so we finally did pass that. And I think that was the thing that we used. But most of the time we're always concerned about the tribal cultural resources because that's the thing that comes up all the time. But also we wanted to make sure that cultural resources weren't necessarily limited to just the tribes. So, that just reminds me, we had some years ago a politician who wanted to preserve the Oregon Trail's ruts, or the route of the Oregon Trail, and wanted to prevent anybody building with so many feet of it, until it was pointed out to him that runs through the heart of downtown The Dalles, as well as the heart of Pendleton and a few other places. So that had to be withdrawn. He hadn't thought that through carefully.
Interesting. Thank you, Roger.
Mm-hmm.
Julie, go ahead.
Roger, you said that the rules for the Gorge Commission apply everywhere within the gorge, but what about urban areas?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's an obvious exception. Yeah, we have no jurisdiction whatsoever inside urban areas, which is another concern of mine because the urban areas, when the Gorge Commission Act was passed, Oregon had land use laws from Senate Bill 100 back in the 70s, and every acre in the land was in some kind of designated zone. Not so in the state of Washington at the time. So there were urban area boundaries already set up for the 4 cities in the gorge, that being the Dalles, Mosier, Hood River, and Cascade Locks on the Oregon side. But there were no such things on the Washington side. So they said to the people in Washington, well, dream big, give us big borders so you have a long time supply. And the thing that kind of annoys me a little bit, personally speaking, not for the county, but for myself personally, is there are 4 urban areas on the Oregon side, 9 on the Washington side, only 3 of which have incorporated cities in them, or 4 of them, sorry. And the rest of them, places like Wishram and Home Valley and whatnot, are just clusters of homes. And the biggest, by far, urban area of the gorge is the Dallesport Peninsula, which is larger even than the urban area surrounding the Dalles. And that was kind of a bit of unfairness that happened just because.
Great questions, guys. Any others?
Roger, you're not alone on that last point, and on many others. That's exactly what happened. To compound that, you had a lot of political opposition to the scenic area, there was discussion of making this a national park even. On the Oregon side, the Washington side, they kind of saw the train coming. And yes, you look at enormous exempt areas on the Washington side compared to Oregon. And now, City of the Dalles perspective, we're out of room. And maybe speak a little bit to this interpretation that we have, what is it, a 20-year or a 20-acre expansion forever? How does that work out?
Okay, I was heavily involved in the commission. As I mentioned earlier, there are regular updates required for the management plan, and we went through one in 2020. It was really contentious, particularly when it came to urban area boundaries. And the rules for the scenic area said minor adjustments may be made to the urban area boundaries. Now, one thing is absolutely locked in, Claire. They can't expand the exterior boundaries at all. The exterior boundaries are set forever and ever. But the urban boundaries, they did this one little wiggle room that they could do so if it was a minor adjustment. Well, only twice has been adjustments in those boundaries, and those were ascribed. They moved some land in and out down near Cascade Locks, which actually made more sense. And they also adjusted one of the barriers, or that was Carson, but it was very minor stuff. And then, so the definition of what is minor was key to, had never been defined, and it's one of those slippery terms. And ultimately, they came up with, I think it was 20 acres or 2%, whichever is smaller, because some of those are fairly small areas. I think Home Valley is pretty tiny and North Bonneville is pretty tiny, whereas Dallesport is huge. And at the final vote, one of the other people, that was Michael Mills, who's retiring as chair this year, suggested that we make it 50 acres, but they didn't change the requirement so that we'd have to apply for a 20-acre one, a second 20-acre one, and a third 10-acre one, with all the incredible paperwork, backup time, and energy to get ultimately those 50 acres. And then they locked it in saying, we want to make that forever, no changes beyond that. Well, obviously, we could go through and change the plan as well, but that would take a lot of effort. So I'm kind of stymied and frustrated by that. The Wasco County purchased 154 acres just to the west side of the Dalles, and that was Bert Hodges, the Speedy Sales estate, and 4.2 inches or acres in the lower right-hand corner of that are in the urban boundary. The rest is not, but that's that scrub land. If you go out past where the fish overpass is and you look to your left, not the flat area, but beyond that. And to me, one of the things that we should be allowed to expand it is to one of the two values of the act is, one is to protect and enhance the natural, scenic, cultural, recreational area, and two is where to encourage economic growth within the urban areas and where it's compatible outside the urban areas. And to me, enhancing recreational opportunities would be an ideal thing to move the ballparks, say, from the fields out there, which are now sit in some prime commercial territory, and move them out there and take some of that pressure off. The big problem we have is we don't have hardly any industrial space. And that's because Google's bought up most of it. And the last I heard from the port, which owns the property out there, is the biggest piece they can put together for somebody right now is 5 acres. So I'm sure Phil wants to speak to that.
Thank you for bringing this. Yeah, it's a couple things on the Bert Hodges property. We bought 5 more acres close to the Riders Club, so now it's 159 acres. That 4 acres that you're speaking of Bert had started to develop that as a trailer park, and we're putting in an application to redevelop that as a trailer park, get it operating again, so that the Dalles has a place for people to come bring their trailers when they're here for sports events and such. That is pending. There's issues with the watershed, with it's close to Chenoweth Creek, and the floodplain of Cherry Creek encroaches on that area, so we'll have to monitor that. Our dream is to put sports facilities on the flat area, and then develop the upper lands with trails, horse trails. That is consistent with a plan coming from the Friends of the Gorge to establish a very major trail that loops the entire scenic area from Portland to Biggs and on the Oregon side, and back to Vancouver on the Washington side. That's being put together segment by segment. The most recent segment is attempts to build a trail from Mosier to the Dalles, and the talks have looked like, okay, where would be the trailhead on the Dalles side? Could it be at the Discovery Center, or Weir County said it would? We could put it here at the 159 acres Bert Hodges property, which would, I think, be better because it would allow citizens of the Dalles to move into that area and enjoy recreation on the land right next to us. Otherwise, we feel very separated from the gorge. It's not part of our park, of our community.
I will point out that the original act passed way back actually specifically called out for a trail circumnavigating the scenic area. And I will say this for the Friends, have been very diligent about putting that together. Speaking also in my other hat as member of the board of the Discovery Center, we'd sure like it to end there as well to get more parking and more customers, but we understand the situation.
Yeah, it's got a road there. I'm also on that board, so
we do wear multiple hats, don't we?
And right now the work from the Friends of the Gorge is on hold because of the fires at Rowena.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, anybody got anything else?
On that last point, let's do both. The Historic Highway 30 is a termination point at both of those locations. It's going to be bringing a lot of bicyclists through as well, so
yeah,
we can share.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and that I think is going to be actually a huge burst, and we're going to get bicyclists doing all kinds of things. Jill.
Rodger, I just want to say thank you for continuing to talk about the subject and to remind everyone the pictures that Rodger showed you were 6 months ago, and it looks very similar. So myself, my neighbors, my friends, we're still living this every day. It's taken a village. There have been so many people working to try and get our community back. We're grateful. I'm grateful for the community that I live in. And so I just want to say thank you for everyone who continues to talk about it and support the community. It's very meaningful to all of us. So thank you.
You bet. Absolutely. And I do want to mention the good news came yesterday. You were there at the or covered the Wasco County Commission meeting, was when they got everything squared away. There was this situation, and I want to commend the county for moving so quickly on this. The state came through and said, you know, we can clean this up for you from all the hazardous material and whatnot. It'll be $5 million. And the county said, let's talk about that. And as it happens, we have a great resource in a particular construction company locally. And they came in and they did an estimate of $3.2 million, I believe it was. Is that right, Phil? 3.2, something in that ballpark.
Crestline, I think it's 3.5.
3.5, yeah, for Crestline. And the county exercised what they have the control in emergency situations. They can give it to a single bidder who is uniquely qualified. And they had a couple of people who were dissatisfied with that and tried to protest that. And that was quickly shut off yesterday at the meeting. But I have to say that this was an amazing thing for Crestline to be able to do quickly and easily. They have so many advantages. One thing is they don't have to transportate. They don't have to haul people in from Portland or someplace else to do that for additional cost and additional gas usage and whatnot. So, and they have all the expertise and all the permits to do some of the very difficult stuff.
Tyler Stone deserves tremendous credit for that. This has been his work, daily work for months here to keep that process going.
Yeah. And we are lucky enough to have a very mild winter so far. It'd be nice to be able to do some construction in this as well, but we shall see. I did put my contact information if anybody wants to talk to me or contact me about anything having to do with the Gorge Commission. I was a temporary appointment only for a month or two while we got this straightened out, and it just keeps straightening out. So my understanding is I'll still be there for the January meeting. We'll see what happens for March. So, yeah.
Well, thank you, Rodger. We appreciate all the information and the updates. So we do that. And then, yes, like he said, it's at the very top of the chat is all of his information, so you can get a hold of them. Any final words or thoughts that you would like to leave us with, Rodger?
There's hope out there. It's getting a little bit dusty right now because of the length of time. But I'm still amazed that, for instance, all of the commissioners originally voted to go ahead with this. Nobody stopped us from that. And even the Friends are saying we generally agree with this. And the big point, we agree that the conditions have changed enough that you can make this change. So we hope to get as quick as possible. And best wishes for everybody who has suffered that loss. You guys take care.
Thank you. And just a reminder, we are not meeting the next 2 Thursdays because that's Christmas and New Year's. So we'll be getting on the first week of January. We'll be back in full swing. We'll be sending out notes to see who wants to be guest speakers for 2026 as we have a list already started. So if you know of somebody or you're wanting to be that, please let me know and we'll get you in that schedule right away. So with that, everything, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And hopefully you are shopping local like no other because our businesses need it now more than ever. So please take advantage of our amazing community and get creative if you're not sure what. There's a ton down there to discover. So thank you all and have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you.